maybe you could explain the whole idea of duping.
Sure. So the idea is that there is a escape pod for spaceships, and because you might be adrift for a really long time, the escape pod kills you and takes a recording of your mind and stores it until such time as you can be regenerated. But under bizarre circumstances, occasionally the recordings can be played back more than once. And so our main character, we meet him multiple times in multiple different situations. I was trying to play with some concepts of identity there. There actually is sort of our underlying philosophy behind this idea of, given something that isn't quite a blank slate, but is us missing some experiences. It's an us a couple of weeks ago, or an us yesterday. Would we make the same choices? Would we end up in the same place? Or is it because we had those experiences that we ended up making that decision?
It's kind of an extreme way of rescuing somebody by having a machine that actually, part of its function to save you is to kill you.
Yes. There's precedent for things that are almost like this. Alien, they wake up from something that's almost but not quite death. Even Avatar, the opening scene of Avatar is people being pulled out of code sleep, and they're in a state, they're not fully conscious yet. So why not take it one step further? Why not just record them? Because then it really doesn't matter. You don't need any oxygen, you don't need refrigeration, you don't need to worry about cell damage or whatever. And then a lot of things sort of fell out of having that piece of technology lying around. One of the reviewers that I talked to called this a gadget novel, and we've got this gadget. What happens when you have that gadget? What does that do for the character?
Let's start off with where he starts off with, which is out in
an asteroid belt, in a solar system that isn't ours. I sort of left that part a little vague. This hovers on the edge of hard sci-fi, but I gloss over one of the fundamental tenets of hard sci-fi, which is how do you get to that star system anyway? So he's in a mineral-rich belt, being a miner and working alone the way he likes it, and he's forced to work together with others who are himself.
And the characters in Duplicate are the same person, but they're also definitely not.
They're really not, yeah.
And they have a whole set of choices to make, as we all do every day.
Mm-hmm.
Gary has these choices to be made, and why wasn't he more paralyzed? Because I think I would, once I saw my own footprints ahead of me.
Well, that's why the story is about Gary. He's the person that makes this story interesting. Sure, in your situation, you might freeze, you might get stuck. They might dupe you over and over again until they get what they want from you. It's like The Prisoner. Every episode of The Prisoner starts out with them demanding information, and they always have a new tactic. And The Prisoner doesn't really change much from episode to episode. He's sort of a constant. He's just figuring out how to subvert what's happening to him. But he does get to learn from his experience, right? The hero of the story is the person that can unwind that problem. And, there's this spark of heroes, this essential quality of heroes that they don't give up, that they have the tool within them that it's required to sort of power through the situation. And that's, in this case, he's a very ordinary guy. He just happens to be very persistent, very clever, and able to get out of that situation. And that's what makes it an interesting story and not sort of a slave ship story.
I like the fact that he is surprised by his own heroism, what he is actually capable of, because he doesn't really think that he is capable of all the great things that he can actually do.
That's right. I love how you summarize it there. Sometimes it takes that wake-up call sometimes it's other people telling you, hey, you just did something really cool. And you go, I'm the sort of person who does something really cool. Huh. Maybe I can do other cool things. And here he's got this very odd sort of evidence. It's not someone else telling him. It happened. He has evidence that it happened. It didn't happen to him, but it was done by something that is effectively him. And that's transformative, just knowing that, or in his case, just believing that he has that spark of heroes within him, frees him to do some stuff that maybe he would have never thought he could do in the first place.
He's a nicer... Not nicer, that's not the right word. Is a better person at the end of the book?
Well, it's an open question. I think he's a more socialized person. You know, he's become comfortable with other people to a larger extent than he had been before. You know, we don't see a lot about what happened before the book starts to get him to this loner place. But there is definitely one of the themes that occurred to me as I was writing it. A lot of times these themes are in my subconscious and they need to be expressed in fiction before I understand what they are. Is this exactly that self-reliant, isolationist attitude breaks down when you suddenly discover you need other people. And the sci-fi twist is that the other people he needs are himself. You know, sometimes you need yourself.
The book is Duplicate. I've been speaking with the author Alex Feinman, and Duplicate is available via lulu.com.